Elsa van der Nest, would love you to join us.
Good morning from Singapore, Chanya, and to all who are joining our dialogue this morning. I'm going to give you, I hope that during this short time together, we will have an insightful time, and I hope that it would be of great benefit to your career as you move along going into the industry. To start our dialogue, I would like to give you a brief background of my career path, which will hopefully encourage you on your journey in the hospitality industry. After graduating from Silwood in 1985, yes, that's quite a long time ago, my first job was chef de cuisine at Montfleur Conference and Training Center. And I had never been in the industry where I had been trained by a mentor. I was freshly out of school, and it was the first time that I had to put a team together, train them, put new menus together, and work out purchasing for all our events. And I remember that our first intake for the conference center was the board of directors from Woolworths. So I was extremely nervous, as it was really my first time going into the industry and showcasing my talent. From there, I went to Greyton Lodge and spent 3 years there, also as chef de cuisine. And then I moved to the UK, where I had the wonderful opportunity to work at Le Manoir Quatre Saisons with Raymond Blanc, which was a 2 Michelin star restaurant outside Oxfordshire. I was also only able to go and work there on the condition that I would work for 1 year for free. So not earning a single penny. It was a great commitment that I had to make. The only money I ever earned was £20 from Mick Jagger from the Rolling Stones when they came for dinner one night. At the time, I was the only female in a brigade of only 10. Today, there is a brigade of nearly 50 staff in the kitchen. So you can imagine, we worked tremendously hard. We worked an average of 18, 19 hours a day for 16 days straight. I remember on our day off, we would just sleep. I would go to sleep that night after midnight and wake up the next afternoon at about 4 o'clock. And in those days, we didn't have cleaners to come in and clean the kitchen. So after service, we would have to clean the kitchen and wash it down from top to bottom. And I was in charge of cleaning the brasso on the ovens. So after a long day, 17, 18 hours, we then still had to clean the kitchen down. And I went through quite a tough time being the only female in the kitchen. The male chefs at times would want to play tricks on me. And when I would go into the walk-in fridge to collect vegetables, they would close the fridge door and switch the light off and keep me in there for about 5 minutes. Today, I actually have a phobia about walking into a walk-in fridge. I still keep the door open, thinking that I will be locked in there. So after spending a year in the 2 Michelin star restaurant with Le Manoir, I came to South Africa and I opened my first restaurant, which was a French-style restaurant on Tybal Square. I was 27 years of age and started my new career back in South Africa. That went on to a second restaurant at the BMW Pavilion, the Bistro. And after being in the industry for many years as a restaurant owner, I then opened my own culinary school called the Elsa van der Nest Culinary Academy, which is now the Hearst Academy in Palm. So when I had the academy, we also did catering events. And one particular event was for the great golfer, Ernie Els. And at the time, we had to take out R1 million worth of insurance just for the transportation of the food in a Woolworths truck out to a wine farm in Stellenbosch, to ensure that everything would be absolutely, there would be no problems with food poisoning and that could arise from traveling between Cape Town and Paarl. And we started off, the wedding started off with a cocktail party out on the lawn, followed by, we had to cook out of the cellar a 5-course meal, and after serving the 5-course meal out of the cellar, we then had to do a barbecue at 2 o'clock in the morning. So we finished work at 5:30 that morning. So you can imagine working nearly 24 hours on that event, the experience it was and the hard work it took for us to have this great successful event with international sports players from around the world that came along. Another event we had to do also, our students took part in, was to do a big 50th birthday party on the rugby field of Greyton Sports School, and we also had to take our food out all in a refrigerated truck, and we worked for 15 to 16 hours out of the refrigerated truck at 2 degrees, and outside it was 40 degrees. So you can imagine the next day we could barely not walk because of the different temperature that we were exposed to working the long hours. Also remember, at these events, especially the one on the rugby field, we had no running water. So we had to bring in water to wash all the plates and the cutlery and the crockery. Very little electricity. We had no electricity, so it was all a buffet. So these challenging events really built up character. And I've always said that being a chef is being like a surfer. Like you surf the waves, you have big waves that you have to surf with, and then they knock you down and you come down and you have to get up again. Likewise, in a career in our industry, we are faced with many challenges as we go along. We have good times, we have difficult times, we have to work very hard, we get knocked down, and yes, we have to stand up again and keep going. And then I had the opportunity to move to Singapore when I met my former husband in 2002. And that was a big change, coming to the East after working and spending so much time in South Africa in the industry. It's a very different mindset here and a very different culture. So I had to readapt and reshape myself in the industry here. And when I started off here in Singapore, I was the director of the Culinary Academy at Raffles Hotel, and then SARS came along, and that was our first pandemic that we didn't think it would ever happen. We were faced with a very challenging time in Asia with SARS, and we all had to change our way of working. From where I was director in the academy, I found myself working in all areas of the hotel at the time, because we all had to buckle up and assist wherever we could. So after SARS, I decided to go into the catering business in Singapore. I saw that there was a niche in the market for really high-end catering. So I was very fortunate to meet up with the top events organizer in Singapore, who dealt with all the top brands around the world. So the challenge for our business was that when brands do launches, they start in New York. From New York, they would go to London. From London, they would go to Paris, to Milan, to Hong Kong, and then finally back to Singapore. And then the final event would be in Singapore. So for us, the challenge has always been that we had to be the best, and we had to create events that were extraordinary, that would really showcase Singapore. So I recall one event that we did for Audemars Piguet, which is a well-known international watch brand. We did it on a railway station. Today it is a historical monument. It was the railway station, but it was the railway link between Malaysia and Singapore. And we set up the event over 4 days, and we fed 200 people over lunch and 200 people at dinner. We also faced a challenge because we had no water and no electricity. And luckily, close by to the railway station was a Lutheran church, and we were able to use their kitchen to do all the cooking and preparation, and the food would arrive 45 minutes before the service, and we would then set it all up. So that was a really challenging event for us, but very, very successful. And another event we also had to do, which was a challenge, which was on one of the rooftops of one of the buildings in Singapore, in the city, where we also had no electricity and no running water for nearly 500 guests. On that particular day, as one of the challenges we face in Singapore when we do outdoor events, the tropical rain just comes from nowhere. It can rain on one side of the road, and on the other side of the road it doesn't rain. And we had a tropical downpour that afternoon, and we had a break for 45 minutes where there was no rain, where we were fortunate to set up and really had to scramble to get everything on time. So when the first guests arrived, the event was all ready, and we were all on our place, and the food was already laid out. So so these have been challenging times for these events that we do. One particular event, one particular project that I worked on, and I'm not sure if you all saw the movie Crazy Rich Asians. It was a Hollywood movie. It did very well at the Oscars, and I was the caterer for the set. We worked for 3 weeks where they filmed in Singapore, and I averaged for 3 weeks only 19 minutes of sleep every day. We on some days we would cater for a cast of over 1,000, and the main cast were 20 actors, and then we had about 25 directors and cinematographers, and each actor, main actor and director, main director team and cinematographer team had their own assistants that I had to provide. And they all had their own dietary requirements over and above the other 150 cast that we also had to look after daily. So that was quite a challenge. I remember one actress would eat only 3 packets of gummy bears a day that we had to provide her. So we would start breakfast at 1 o'clock in the morning. At 4 o'clock in the morning, they would come and collect the breakfast, and then I would leave the bakery from where I prepared the breakfast from and move over to my partner's restaurant, unlock the restaurant, and then start with the first wave, which was that we would have to deliver the tea, the morning tea at 10 o'clock, and then the lunch at 1 o'clock. So you can imagine how much work we had to do when we had days up to feeding 1,000 actors on set. And then after lunch, we would do afternoon tea, which was just, they would collect at 3 o'clock, and then they would collect dinner around about 7 in the evening. So by the time I got home in the evening, would be round about 9 o'clock, and we were on call 24/7. So that was a real challenge working on that movie set. And I remember the last evening of the final cut of the movie, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I got a call from the directors and had to go to the supermarket and buy over $200 worth of sweets and chips to keep them going for the night. The next morning, I actually physically could not walk. That is the strain that the hard work really takes a toll on one's mind and one's body. When we had the final wrap party that evening, I couldn't put shoes on my feet. I had to go along with slip-slops. So with all of this hard work, what I want to explain to all of you is that, yes, we are faced with a lot of challenges in our industry, especially now with the pandemic. Singapore is a small country. We only have about just over 5 million people living here. And the announcement, very much like in South Africa, was overnight that we were going to go into lockdown. For a small country like Singapore, this was this really really knocked our industry, and we had Michelin star restaurants that really went from 2-3 Michelin star type of food that had to change their business model overnight and start doing takeaways. So all our restaurants and our hawker centers went into delivering takeaway food, which was very well supported by the Singapore community, because we really wanted it to survive. We didn't want it to collapse, and we wanted everyone to retain their jobs. So during lockdown, there were no cars on the road, except for the motorbikes going around delivering takeaways. And that really, the support of the community to our industry helped them to get through lockdown. And when we went into level 2, we had to go into all the safe distancing, and everyone had to remodel, also go into another remodeling of their business model to sustain the next level. But we were fortunate enough that we were able to open, hotels were able to open. But in the remodeling of our business models, we've had to look at, we have a travel ban at the moment in Singapore, and so we are not allowed to leave the country. So really the support has come from the community, and hotels have had to slash their rates tremendously to support the local community, so that we call it staycations in Singapore. So over weekends, you would go and book into a hotel with your family, and that would be a staycation. Or during the weekend, they were offering many specials to sustain their business, to continue to function. And I always think that what we always see, that in a crisis like this, and how we are faced with a crisis throughout the world in our industry, and where jobs are lost, this is really the time for you to use your talent, to use your initiative, and to look at rebranding yourselves in the industry, and rebranding yourself as a chef, or as a hotelier, or as a restaurateur, because this COVID is not going to go away for a while, and so it is going to have an impact, and it is having an impact on our industry. So if we look at sustainability, that is going to, food sustainability is really going to play a very important role in our industry. And for those of you who have lost your jobs, this is really a time for you to use your talent within your community, so that you can grow, you can start small businesses and become successful. We have learned through SARS that we have to sustain ourselves, and it's vital going forward that your relationship with food continues, and that you continue to empower yourself and to believe in yourself, because the industry is going to have to keep their talent and for it to survive. And so most importantly is that you need to believe in yourself, and you need to believe in the industry. Tough times make us tougher, and they make us resilient, and they make us work harder, because if we don't, we will fail. And my message today is that my career has not come very easily. At the age of 55, 35 years later from the time when I graduated, I continue to work because I'm passionate and I believe in our industry. It's a very exciting industry that we have chosen our career path in. Throughout this period, I've also been following the situation closely in South Africa and around the world, and especially America, that has also been tremendously hard hit. I have seen how the chefs and restaurateurs and young bakers and young cooks have reinvented themselves over this period to come up with new ideas, to come up with new business models, so that they can continue with their success. So although this is a very difficult time for all of us, our catering industry has totally shut down right now. So caterers have had to look at different forms of income, how they have had to regenerate themselves in their careers. And small takeaway businesses have really become tremendously successful here. Even if you make the best baguette and you are just selling baguettes all day long, you are providing your skill to the industry and your support. So I think my message that during this very difficult time is that you continue to keep positive, you continue to reinvent yourself, and come up with new ideas. Look beyond where you are today. Look at the rest of the world. Go onto Instagram when you can. Go onto Facebook and follow international chefs, so that you can learn from what they are doing. And that is what I have done. I have followed chefs that I have great respect for around the world, and I have learned very much from them over the past 5 months during this pandemic, how they have reinvented their talent and their business skills. So it is in a time like this that we really do all need to learn from one another. We need to rely on one another, and we need to believe in one another to succeed. We have been very hard hit here, like the rest of the world, but it is in a time that we have really seen young chefs, especially young chefs, come out with innovative ideas that has been very rewarding and extremely interesting to watch. So you must use your talent and you must believe in yourself, because nothing comes easy. and hard work brings success. Yes, there have been times that I have not been able to walk after working long shifts of, you know, the 3 weeks with the Crazy Rich Asians, or 24 hours on a very, very long event. But it is gratifying because you see the success, and that is the message that I would like to put across to you as young students today, going out into the big wide world, is believe in yourself. There are the most incredible opportunities out there, and most importantly is to read. When I had my academy in South Africa, I always used to say to my students, read many recipe books, read about food, read about the history of food, because that will help your knowledge, that will help your seed within you to grow, because we are never too old to stop learning in our industry. We continue to push ourselves to the next limit. And if you think it's going to be plain sailing and it's going to be all so easy, that is the wrong perception to have. But importantly is to enjoy what you are doing. If you love food, you will love to create new dishes, new ideas, and experiment with new concepts, so that you can one day become one of the most leading chefs in the world. So that is my message to you as young students today. So I hope that you have found our short dialogue fruitful and encouraging to your career. And if you can get the opportunity to travel and to work hard, do so. Even if it means working for free with the top chef in the world, like I did, to give you the best experience, do that, because it will guide you, and it will make you stronger, and it will help you in your career to move forward. So Chania, is there anything that
Elsa,
you would...
yeah, Elsa, that's absolutely so illuminating and absolutely fantastic to hear you and the history, how your career has grown so brilliantly. You're definitely a huge inspiration to everybody out there, and know that we will get through this together, 100%. So I'm going to, yeah, if there are any further questions from everybody, we will definitely let them know that you are available on the Q&A as well. And ultimately, yeah, we will definitely send you a note. Thanks, Elsa. Terrific.
Fantastic, and thank you for having me today. And good luck to you all, and miss you all.
Miss you too. Can't wait for you to come and visit as soon as our borders are open again.
Yes, and as soon as we can leave here.
Yes, exactly.
All the best to you all. Thank you for having me today. Thank you
so much, Kay. Bye, everyone. Bye.